Good.
So I've been successful.
Yes.
Good.
I just did it one more time and then it happened.
Anna, Dr. Dhanrai Sarva Gun Sampanna.
Etamani?
Sarva Gun Sampanna.
Oh, she's saying Sarvaguna Sampanna. I don't know, Dr. Renu. That is your greatness, I think. So we can start, Nana. I'll mute everyone. You can get started.
Okay.
Yeah, you.
Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrusham Tamasyadirlakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Shruti Smruti Puranam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Now today we will cover the PDF commentary on verses 51 to 53. That is one bunch. Then 55 and 57. And all these will go to about 35 pages in the document, in the book I have. It may not be so many pages in the PDF document that is projected. It may be about 20, but it takes a little time. Okay. And today also we may step into your manana time.
That's not an issue.
Yesterday it was too much. We have usurped 1.5 hours of your manana time plus the other half an hour also. That was inescapable because the commentary was very exhaustive. It had to knock out the various confusions regarding Atma, various confusions about ourselves that we entertain and how to get rid of that. And after having gotten rid of that, how to stay there, that Jnana Nishtha. All those things Swamiji so very, very clearly has elucidated. So that had to have its time pressure. Now 51 through 53. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Dhrutyatmanam Niyamya cha Shabdadin Vishayan Tyaktva Ragadveshau Yudasya cha. Yeah, we will go to 52nd verse also. Vivikta Sevi Lagvasi Yatava Kaya Manasaha Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. Ahamkaram balam darpam kamam krodham cha. Ahamkaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmamashyanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Just for recapitulation, I will run through the tatparya of all these three verses, then go to the commentary. Yeah, the tatparya. The 51st verse. The one who endowed with a mind that is very clear, mastering the body, mind, sense complex, being endowed with firm resolve, and giving up the sense objects such as sound, etc., and giving up likes and dislikes. The one who lives in a quiet place, who eats lightly, whose speech, body, mind are mastered, who is always committed to contemplation, who has completely resorted to freedom from longing, giving up misplaced I sense, power, vainfulness, binding desire, anger, ownership of external things, the one who has no sense of ownership of his own body, etc., and who is tranquil, is fit for certainty about being Brahman. Yeah, I forgot one thing. Yesterday, Sumaji had some question. Maybe we can get on to that question before we go on to the commentary. Sumaji has come?
Yes, Nanaji, Hari Om Nanaji. My question was about self-inquiry.
Pardon?
Because we are often, I often come across this statement that you have to do self-inquiry. So Ramana Maharshi had given this statement, who am I? Inquire into who am I? So I had this confusion about that yesterday, that because in this PDF, we have to drop everything about the self-inquiry. So I had a doubt on that. But towards the end, I think I got this clarity that, I don't know if I'm right, that we have to let go of that notion of self. Am I right?
Yes, that misplaced I. The notion of I, you can't see. The notion of I is whatever you mistakenly have taken yourself to be. That is the notion. That has to be given up. The misplaced I sense, the misplaced ahankara, that has to be given. Yeah. Yeah, towards the end, when you got the answer, can we go forward now?
Yes, Nanaji. Thank you.
Thank you. This is what? This is this third verse, 53rd verse, giving up misplaced I sense, power, vainfulness, binding desire, anger, ownership, the one who has no sense of ownership and who is tranquil is fit for certainty about being Brahman. See, so many words have been used in the English translation of the verse, which is a two-line verse. Brahmara, can you go to the verse, this particular verse? Ahamkaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shantaha brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He will become a person fit for brahma bhuyaya, for rediscovery of who indeed he is. And what are the requirements? Ahamkaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham. All these giving up. Kamam, okay, balam, darpam, krodham, all these ahankaram, all these giving up, parigraham, and your possessions also. You don't have any notion that you are the owner. You are not the owner. You have been made the trustee by Bhagavan. Kitaya made you the trustee for your husband, for your wife, for your children, for your bandhu bandhavyas, mitras, shatrus, everybody. You are a trustee. You better be a good trustee and discharge your duties accordingly as per what the Shastra wants you to do. Vimutya, having been freed from all these things, nirmamaha, ahankara rahitaha, shantaha, very peaceful, very tranquil within himself. Tranquil. And how that tranquility will be attained to by you? When your mind is not in any kind of conflict. That is what is required. Shantaha. Then Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Yeah, we'll go forward. The way to pursue Jnana Nishtha, the one who follows all the things prescribed here, becomes qualified to become Brahman, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. See, you can see here, when you read anything, you must be very careful what you are reading. That become is in quotes. That means what? Very unwillingly, Swamiji has used this word here. Qualified to become Brahman. It is a kind of a rediscovery. That rediscovery of the fact that you have forgotten who indeed you are. That rediscovery is that within quotes become Brahman, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. He is fit to gain Nishtha in the knowledge of Brahman, being himself. See here, being himself. He has been all along that only. He has not known that. Here, the various qualifications mentioned throughout the Gita are brought together in these three verses. A person who has lived a life of Karma Yoga, a prayerful life for a length of time, is endowed with a mind that is very clear. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yuktaha. He no longer has any confusion about what he seeks in life because he is very clear about what he wants. He does not attribute to things a value which they do not have and get carried away by false pursuits. This clarity about what is to be accomplished in life makes him free from the hold of likes and dislikes, ragadveshas. Like in yesterday's commentary which Brahmara was reading, a person who was on the river bank, which was in a kind of spate, and this person was in great need of going to the other bank. And he thought, luckily, there was a log of wood which was floating, and simply he jumped into the river and grabbed that. And what he grabbed was not a log of wood, but a bear who was hanging on to him. These ragadveshas will be like that. Dhriti is courage backed by proper discrimination, a firm resolve with proper attitude. Atma here means the physical body, mind, sense complex. Niyamya, gaining mastery over the physical body, mind, sense complex means making it serve oneself as a vehicle rather than it being a project. Maintenance of the body and keeping the mind and senses busy to satisfy their demands becomes an all-consuming project if one lacks proper discrimination and the capacity to act on the basis of that viveka. For the one who recognizes that the purpose of life is not satisfying fancies and has a commitment to his pursuit of moksha, the physical body, mind, sense complex becomes a vehicle for his pursuit. This is with reference to contemplation and also lifestyle. Keeping the body, mind, sense complex under his control means not using it to satisfy fancies and living a very conscious, deliberate life with the end, moksha, always in view. Thus, this person, Dhrutya, with a firm resolve, Atmanam Niyamya, gaining a mastery over his body, mind, sense complex, comes to abide in Brahman. Here we are talking about a life of renunciation, the life of a sannyasi. This involves giving up pursuit to the sense objects. So Krishna says, Shabdadin Vishayan Chektva, the five sense objects, sound, touch, taste, form, and scent, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Grandhaha, are not pursued as ends. he does not completely abandon all of them, for that would mean giving up food, for instance, which would lead to death. He is pursuing Jnananishta. And to do this, he must have his body properly maintained. Therefore, Shankara makes a note here that except those required for maintenance of the body, he gives up all other pursuits with reference to situations and things that are necessary for the sustenance of the body. There are likes and dislikes, ragadveshas, even for a sannyasi. Those also he gives up. His is a life totally dedicated to the pursuit of Jnana-nishtha. Generally, as a sannyasi, one lives a life of as a mendicant. A sannyasi is told to live this particular lifestyle as a sadhana. He is supposed to move around, staying only 3 nights in one place. The idea is that he does not develop roots anywhere. But when the pursuit is Jnana-nishtha, even that stops. He lives in a quiet place. Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Aratirjana Samsadi Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanardha Darshanam Etad Jnanamiti Proktam Ajnanam Yadato Anyatha. There is an Upanishad which gives a kind of an injunction for the lifestyle of a sannyasi. What that Upanishad says is, I forgot the name of the Upanishad. What it says is, no sannyasi should stay in a village or in a town or a place for more than 1 day. Here Swamiji mentioned 3 nights, but that Upanishad says 1 night. That's 1 day and 1 night. And afterwards he must move. Otherwise, there is a danger of even the sannyasi getting an attachment to that place, to the set of people, to the comforts that he is offered by the grihastha, etc. All those things may be totally binding on the sannyasi, who is required to give up a lot of things, a lot of activities. That is why 1 day. And in the village or town, whatever, he should not go to a gruham more than once. If he goes to place A, that is all. In his entire life, that is the last time he has gone there. That is how it is ordained. Those injunctions are there. So, Vivikta Desha, he has to, roll it, Brahmara. He has to stay in one place in order to gain this nishtha. Vivikta Desha is a place which is free from people and therefore from noise. Shankara says it can be a forest or a sandy bank of a river or a hill or a cave. The idea is that it should be a quiet place. The one who has the disposition to live in such a place and follows that inclination is Vivikta Desha Sevi, Vivikta Sevi. This is a person who is given to a life of contemplation. If you go to a quiet place and are not ready for contemplation, you will only feel lonely and spend your time writing letters to everybody and seeking other diversions, or you will leave the place. The other day, I was going through a calendar kind of. This is from the Chinmaya Mission, Mumbai. There, almost every sheet from day 1, that is the date 1 to date 30 or 31, everything has got some quotation from Swami Chinmayananda. Yesterday's this thing, what I read was, Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. Why it is required is, Swamiji says beautifully, you must tend to like your presence yourself. If you do not get entertainment by yourself, within yourself, then why do you have to frequent places and inflict your unwanted presence on all others? What a beautiful way of saying it. If you don't like your own presence, if you are not happy with yourself by yourself, why you are inflicting that unhappy person in you on others by frequenting to different places. That is why Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. When he is doing contemplation, there's not much expenditure of energy, and therefore is a person whose food intake is light. Lagvashi. He does not eat too much, nor is he fasting all the time. This was mentioned in the 6th chapter, isn't it? Natyasnatastu yogosti, nachekanta manashnetaha, nachati swapnashilasya, jagrito naiva charjuna. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. That yoga becomes the destroyer of dukkha. Dukkha. Ha means hananam. Hananam is a kind of killing. And killing what? Sorrow. Killing that sorrow. Elimination of sorrow. That kind of a yoga becomes the eliminator of sorrow. He does not eat too much, nor is he fasting all the time. Neither is conducive for contemplation. What neither? Not eating too much, and not eating at all. Both are not conducive for contemplation, whereas conforming to that is conducive to contemplation. Yuktahara viharasya, lagvasi. He eats moderately. Shankara says he should eat lightly to ward off obstructions to his contemplation like sleep, etc. If he is overeating, too much blood is used for digestion and not enough is available for the mind. Limited food intake is very important for a contemplative life, because when you have nothing else to do, the tendency is to sleep. And to contemplate, one has to have a bright mind that is fresh and contemplative, and also very alert all the time. A person who is committed to a life of jnana nishtha, whether he wants to convert his knowledge into nishtha or gain the knowledge and convert it into nishtha, must necessarily have mastery over his speech, organs of action, and mind. He should be a yata vak kaya manasaha. This is accomplished only by practice. With reference to the organs of action, there is no wasted activity, no mechanical action. Buddhist monks are very diligent in their practice of this. They are very careful about the movement of all their limbs. This alertness with reference to one's movements is an important discipline. Similarly, with the reference to talking, there is a certain mastery. Since he is living in a quiet, relatively isolated place, there are not many occasions to talk, but still, as a person, he has to have taken care of the pressure to talk. Otherwise, he will be raving. If there is nobody to talk, it will not take very long for him to begin talking to himself, or the trees, or the mountains. If there is a pressure to talk, you must talk. To avoid it is dangerous. Therefore, he should be a person who already has control over speaking. Then he can be a Vivikta Sevi, and his mind also is taken care of. That is why a contemplative life is meant for a sannyasi who has lived a life of karma yoga. A person gains this kind of disposition by living in the midst of society with the right attitude. If he then chooses to live a life of sannyasa, that is the life for him. Such a person is totally committed to contemplation. Dhyana yoga paraha. There are two ways of explaining the compound dhyana yoga para. The one who is committed to a life of meditation, dhyana yoga, can be called dhyana yoga para. Or according to Shankara, dhyana means the contemplation upon the nature of Atma, while yoga means making Atma the single focus of attention. I try to direct my attention to the words that I have come to understand with the help of the Shastra and appreciate the meaning as myself. See the beauty, appreciate the meaning as myself. That is the sense of the Shastra statement That sense, that essence is myself. The self is all this. Atma idam sarvam. This self is complete. I am Atma Purnaha. The self is pure. Atma Shuddhaha. The self is always free. Atma Nitya Muktaha. The self is limitless. Brahman. Atma Param Brahma. The self is the cause of everything. Atma Sarvasya Karanam. This Shabda Anuvidha Savikalpa Samadhi is called Dhyana. This entire Vedanta Shastra talks about Atma, and what it says is to be applied with reference to Atma. When I commit my mind to the Shruti's vision of myself, that is called Dhyana. The yoga is gaining an absorption in that contemplation. This presupposes a commitment to bringing the mind again and again to that point. That alone is kept in view, nothing else. If anything else comes, you again bring the mind back what you are contemplating upon. This is called yoga. This is mentioned in the 6th chapter. Yato yato nischarati manaha chanchalam astiram tatas tatat nayam yetat atmani eva vasham nayet. If you recollect the 6th chapter verse, the one who is committed to this does nothing else significant. Dhyana yoga alone is commitment. He does it all the time, nityam. That is why this verse is for a sannyasi. If he is a karma yogi, he cannot do dhyana all the time. He has duties to do. The word nityam reveals that he is a sannyasi. Secondly, Shankara says that the mention of the word nityam qualifying the word dhyana yoga para shows that there is nothing else like mantra japa to be done. Having taken to a life of sannyasa, he has already done a lot of mantra japa, invoking the Lord's grace to gain knowledge. That has all paid off in terms of his capacity to contemplate upon the truth of himself, and therefore it no longer has any value for him personally. His mantra japa resolves into jnana nishtha. Since he commits himself to the life of meditation, he has nothing further to do. All this is possible only when there is dispassion, vairagya, which means he is free from the hold of his likes and dislikes, ragadveshas. This applies both to situations and objects, known and unknown. Even heaven does not hold any fascination for him. That disposition is called vairagya. Without that, though he may choose to stay in a quiet place and commit himself to jhana yoga, his mind will not stay. However, once he has this kind of dispassion, what else will he do but meditate, removing the obstacles to contemplation? Further, a few more qualifications are mentioned. He has also freed himself from a number of things that would inhibit his capacity to contemplate. The first is ahankara, the misplacement of his sense of I in the body-mind sense complex, and especially in the sense of doership. This has been accomplished first by the cultivation of an attitude of doing what is to be done, because it is enjoined by the Shastra. An action is chosen and done not merely with the attitude that it is the Lord's will, but with an understanding that though it is done by me, in order to do all this, I require a body, a mind, and a variety of other things. All these are given to me, and therefore it is given to me to do. This is entirely different from the sense of I do, where there is a lack of viveka and arrogance, born of ignorance, that is ahankara. It is completely given up by this sannyasi who understands that in a given situation, he is called upon to do certain things. Bala is strength in terms of capacity, power, skills, etc., which is backed by kama and raga. These are not things that can be given up, nor do they need to be. but they can give rise to a pride of expectation of recognition. This is what is given up by the sannyasi. He acknowledges that he has certain gifts, but does not flaunt them or misuse them. He does not manipulate the world with his powers, etc., whatever they may be. When you accomplish something, the sense of success can give rise to an elation, harsha. Then you look around for recognition, that is called darpa. Every child wants this. When he jumps from the bench, the first thing he does is to look at his mother. He wants her to say, yes, you are wonderful. He wants approval and congratulation, and that is necessary for the child to develop a healthy self-image. In the beginning, he must have, where is this? He continues
Over here.
Yeah, the beginning. Yeah, he must have that to develop self-respect and dignity. If the child does not get adequate approval, he will continue to seek this kind of acknowledgement as an adult. Then it is called vanity. See, what is normal and natural for a child becomes darpa in the adult. It is good, perhaps, for mental health, but it's not helpful to a spiritual pursuit. If the need for such recognition persists and he keeps on gathering it, he will develop an inflated ego to compensate for his impoverished sense of self-worth. Once this ego is inflated, it will be hard for him to respect anything, and it will not take long for him to transgress the laws of dharma. That is why this self-esteem is so very, very important. Self-esteem is the beginning for dropping that misplaced I sense, the ahankara, etc., all those. Shankara quotes here, the elated becomes vainful and the vainful crosses dharma. Hrushtaha drupyati druptaha dharmam atikramati. The one who is elated, he drupyati, he will be what?
He'll have darpa.
He will get the darpa, and the darpa will make him transgress dharma. Being vainful, he will not respect anyone, thinking that there is no one equal to him. In the 16th chapter, Konyosti sadrusham maya, yakshe dasyami modishya, iti ajnana vimohitaha, ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam sasamshritaha. Mamatma paradeheshu pradvishantobhyasuyakaha. And all those things are because of that darpa. That darpa is because of that harsha. Misplaced elation. Okay? Being vainful, he will not respect anyone, thinking that there is no one equal to him, nor will he respect the moral order. This was the problem of Hiranyakashipu. He would not allow his son Prahlada to repeat the Lord's name, saying, only my name should be repeated. This is born out of vainfulness. The sannyasi, Prahlada, in the Bhagavad Purana, Prahlada tells his father, hey father, you are so much against Narayana, but you are thinking more about Narayana than I. You keep on thinking about him. You are not as distant from Narayana as you think you are. He is always with you. The sannyasi, however, has no need for this kind of recognition. He is awake to the nature of himself. Sorry.
Shall I take over, Nana?
Maybe this is coming to an end.
Okay.
It was a sneeze, not a cough.
Okay.
He is awake to the nature of himself and finds his fulfillment in his own fullness, purnatva. Any recognition he may receive will fall short of what he knows himself to be. So it is not going to cause any elation in him. He recognizes that everything is himself, and therefore every glory everywhere is his. From another standpoint, he understands very well that Any accomplishment is dependent upon a large number of factors, all of which are given. See, what it means is, when, say, you are listening, you are given the environment in which you are seated. Okay, you are given the laptop which is given to you. You are given the power that is given to you. Power means electric power, etc. You are given the facility called the Wi-Fi and things like that. And that fellow is working, that Wi-Fi is working, it's not giving you trouble. And you have the capacity through your ears to listen to what I am, say, speaking. And you have the capacity through the mind and other antakarana to understand what you have heard. All this is given to you. This is a plate which is already very well served. You just need begin to eat. That's all. What is given is that he recognizes that everything is himself, and therefore every glory everywhere is his. In the 15th chapter, 15th chapter, Bhagavan says, Kitaya said, Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishtaha, mattaha smritihi jnanam apohanancha, vedaischa sarvaihi ahameva vedyaha, vedanta krud veda videva chaham, and everything, Arjuna. And because of me, everything is possible. And understand, I have given you all that. Not only you, every person in this world, every being in this world is endowed with all those things that is given. When that is given, what are you boasting about yourself about? What are you capable of? If all these things which are given to you, if any one of them is withdrawn, you are crippled, is it not? So understand that. Naturally, he has given up desire, kama, in the sense that any desire that he may have is non-binding. In its fulfillment, he is happy. And in its non-fulfillment also, he is happy. Karmani eva adhikaraha ma phaleshu kadachana. That phala can be ishtam, anishtam, and madhyam cha, mishram cha. Ishtam manishtam mishram cha trividha karmana phalam bhavatya tyaginam pretya natu sannyasinam kvachit. Same, in the same chapter we have covered that. Naturally, he has given up desire, kama, in the sense that any desire that he may have is non-binding. In its fulfillment, he is happy. And in its non-fulfillment also, he is not unhappy. Okay? When that is so, a frustrated desire is not going to cause anger. An obstructed desire is not leading to anger. Jayato vishayan pumsaha sangaha teshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha. From that sangha, from that attachment to that sankalpa, kamaha upajayate. Kamad bhavati krodaha, krodha bhavati sammoha. All these things will not happen. This destructive chain reaction does not happen. There are two types of parigraha, possession, internal and external. By giving of kama and krodha, the sannyasi has already taken care of the problem of parigraha. The need to possess our own various things internally. Now we come to parigraha with reference to external objects. When he is already a sannyasi, what kind of parigraha will he have? A sannyasi is one who has given up his house, job, and all his possessions. All he has left with are a few things like his clothes, his kamandalu, and japamala. Therefore, there is no possibility of parigraha for him. Still, parigraha is mentioned because even with reference to these few objects, there can be a tendency to accumulate and hoard. He may have 10 kamandalus, or even though he is a mendicant, he may have a collection of begging bowls. That is parigraha. Possessions have a knack of gathering around you unless you consciously keep clearing them away all the time. Being a sannyasi, he has also given up his family connections and other relationships. Yes, it is said here that he gives up the sense that this is mine. Nirmamaha was mentioned. With reference to that, Shankara says that even though he has given up everything else, he can still have a sense of ownership with reference to his own body. Once he gives that up, he has no mamatva, even in the sustenance of the body. He has no agenda for how long he has no agenda for how long it should last, and therefore, as long as it is there, he is happy. This is just another reflection of the fact that he lives one day at a time. Shankara says that because he has no mamatva, he is content with himself, being free from elation and depression. Naturally, he is tranquil. Shantaha, nirmamo nirahankaraha, shantaha. Such a person can gain certainty in the knowledge, I am Brahman. This is the Jnananishta. This is called Brahma Bhuya, Brahma Bhavana, becoming Brahma. That becoming Brahma, again put in quotes. See, unable to convey the same thing in any proper selection of words. This is a failing of the language. It's not the failing of the Shastra Vakya. Okay? That is why in the second chapter, Ascharyavat Paschyate Kaschidenam, Ascharyavat Vadati Tadhaiva cha Anyaha. It is difficult to say, and it is difficult to also listen and absorb. He is fit for it, kalpate, that he is ready for immediate knowledge of the fact. For that, he has to live a life of jnana-nishta, which is also the end. The one who has clear knowledge that he is Brahman, and also the one who is committed to the pursuit of that knowledge, is called a jnana-nishta. This is the 54th verse. Now, Brahmana, you please go to the 55th and the 57th. That will be the culmination for today.
Shall I take over?
Yeah.
Bhaktya mamabhijanan, bhaktya mamabhijanati, yavanyaschasmi tattvataha, tato mam tattvato jnatva, vishate tadanantaram. By bhakti in the form of
Brahma, you read the Tatparya also, because quite a long time since we have covered these verses, people may have forgotten the essence of that.
Fine.
Yeah.
By bhakti, knowledge, he, Brahma Bhuya, Brahma Bhutaha, knows me properly as to how much I am and who I am in reality. Therefore, thereafter, knowing me in reality, he enters me soon after that knowing. By bhakti, in the form of knowledge, he knows me in reality. Krishna says he knows me through bhakti. This bhakti is knowledge because there is no way of knowing anything except by knowledge. By simple prayer, you do not recognize an object. This is bhakti, which is in the form of knowledge of Parameshwara. Such, as we have seen, is the bhakti of a jnani. Abhijanati means he knows properly, totally. That is, he recognizes Ishvara as himself. Therefore, Shankara glosses the word bhaktya as jnana lakshanaya bhaktya. By a bhakti that is not other than knowledge. Further, he knows how much I am. This is with reference to the varieties of upadhis, because of which there seem to be differences. This entire creation, Jagat, is nothing but Parameshwara, who is but Brahman with Maya Upadhi. Within that, there are all the elements beginning with space and further Upadhis, so that we have the Devas like Indra, etc., and varieties of other Jiva Upadhis like Arjuna, Dharmaputra, etc. This extent of Parameshwara, how cosmic he is, this person comes to know. He knows to what extent Ishvara expresses himself in terms of his total samashti and individual vyashti upadhis. Not only does he know this Sagunam Brahma with reference to these upadhis, but he also knows the essential nature of Ishvara. Krishna says, he knows me essentially. Mam abhijanati yavan yaha cha aham asmi tattvataha. That is, he knows Ishvara as the one who is totally free from all upadhis. This is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma, spoken of in the 15th chapter as Uttama Purusha, who is free from any particular attribute or location. Shankara says he knows this non-dual consciousness, Advaitam Chaitanya Matra Ekarasam Mam Abhijana. Ekarasam Mam Abhijana. How can you know the non-dual consciousness? If there is a knower involved, there is duality. Thus, he says, it is only as one's own consciousness that one knows this non-dual Brahman. Shankara makes it all very clear here. He is unborn, not subject to age, is not subject to change or death, nor is he subject to any fear because there is no second thing at all. And he cannot be destroyed in any manner. The whole creation is subject to destruction, but not this Param Brahma into which it resolves. What is entry into the Lord? Then Krishna says, knowing me in reality, after that, Tadanantaram, he enters into me. Mam Vishate. Expressions like this are all problematic if they are not understood properly. He enters in the sense that once he knows Parameshwara, he is no longer separate. It is like the snake entering into the rope. In the same way, the jiva resolves in the recognition of Param Brahma. This verse is the real problem for the dualists, and yet, because they do not understand it, it is a matter for celebration for them. They will say that the statement, he enters into me, means he enters into my world, Goloka Vrindavana. And they further say that there in Goloka Vrindavan, one will meet Radha and Krishna. They are very serious about it. This, however, is a very far-fetched interpretation when it is said, he enters into me. This has to be properly understood. As an individual, you cannot enter into Brahman and still retain your individuality like an amoeba entering into a stomach. You will remain the same as you are. If you gain some beatitude because of Ishvara's grace, how long will it last? You cannot say it is eternal, because what is eternal cannot begin. It will end and you will again be the same individual. And what is that beatitude? What is the meaning of beatitude, Nana? Is it blessing or? You're muted, I think. No, we cannot hear it. Yeah.
Sorry, then I'm muted. It is the zenith of happiness, beatitude, the zenith, the acme of happiness. And that is available to you most of the time. Whenever you have been successful in a very tough task, supposing you have really toiled for a particular result and you are so very elated, that is the kind of a beatitude. You are with yourself. For a moment, you don't require any other support to be extremely happy. That is the beatitude.
So you will remain the same as you are. If you gain some beatitude because of Ishvara's grace, how long will it last? Yeah. You cannot say it is eternal, because what is eternal cannot begin. It will end and you will again be the same individual. And what is that beatitude? If there is duality, you enjoy beatitude, there is a problem. If there is duality and you enjoy beatitude, there is a problem. Wherever there is duality, the resolution is not complete because you retain your individuality. If there is a real resolve, all that is there is Bhagavan. Therefore, it is unreasonable to think that you will remain an individual and gain eternal beatitude. It can only be like any other samsarika sukha, which will be lost in time. Because if it is something that is gained, it will be lost. Further, how did you get this beatitude? If it is because of your prayer, prayer being a finite karma, the result will also be finite. Here, the entering is like the wave entering the ocean once it knows it is water. These are all expressions that have to be properly understood. Knowing and entering are not two different things. Similarly, after that, tadanantaram and having known, jnatva, are words expressing the prior conditions necessary to become one with the Lord. That alone is pointed out. Two periods of time are not involved here. What are the prior conditions required for gaining identity with Ishvara? Here it is said, after knowing me, he enters me. Jnatva mam vishate. It is like saying, after eating, he appeases his hunger. It is not that after eating, he has to wait for some time and then appease his hunger. Similarly, after cutting it, it doesn't do anything to make the log into two pieces. In the cutting itself, it has become two pieces. There is no time gap between the completion of the act of cutting and the division it into two pieces. Similarly here, when we say, after knowing he enters, knowing itself is the entry. After that knowing, and that knowing is a necessary condition for entering because you stand isolated from the whole without knowing the truth. That means you were never away from the Lord. You have always been non-separate from the Lord. The sense of separation is purely notional. It is a thought. Because there was a separation, there is a necessity to say that knowing. He becomes one with the Lord. Shankara makes a point by saying that there are not two different actions involved here. After knowing, there is no other result called moksha. Knowledge is the moksha. Knowledge, however, is not the purushartha, and therefore we speak of moksha. I am not interested in the knowledge of Atma. I want to be free from unhappiness, etc. That is to be accomplished. And that end happens to be in the form of knowledge of the truth about myself. Moksha is after knowledge, jnana anantaram, in the sense that it is by knowledge that there is moksha, jnanena mokshaha, and because of knowledge there is moksha, jnanat mokshaha. Moksha is the end, sadhya, while jnana becomes the means, sadhana, and therefore from the standpoint of sadhana sadhya, it is said, after that knowledge, tadanantaram. Here, however, the means happens to be identical to the end. So, after is not in terms of time. Shankara introduces a very interesting discussion here about how one knows, abhijanati. In this verse, he had said at the outset, by bhakti, knowledge, he knows me. Jnana lakshanaya bhaktya mam abhijanati. The Purva Pakshi objects to this and says, you are contradicting yourselves. All along you have been saying that by that ultimate nishta of knowledge, he knows me. Jnanasya ya para nishta taya mam abhijanati. And now you say by a bhakti, that is knowledge, Atma is known. The discussion then revolves around what is understood as the meaning of the word nishta. Taking it to mean repetition, avritti, an objection is raised that these two statements are contradictory. To say one knows Brahman by Jnana-nishta is contradictory, an objection. When knowledge of a given object arises for a knower, then at that time, the knower knows that object. He does not require a repetition of that knowledge. But according to the second statement, it would mean that he does not know by knowledge, but by repetition of the knowledge. Jnana avritya jnana Nishtaya. Suppose a person comes to know a pot as this is a pot. When does he know the pot? The moment he comes to objectify a pot, that very moment he knows this is a pot. No repetition is required. If he knows, he need not repeat. This is a pot, this is a pot, this is a pot. If after 2.5 days of repetition, you come to know this is a pot, and during all the 2.5 days, you did not know it, that repetition has nothing to do with knowing the pot. Suppose someone was repeating pot, 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 not knowing what a pot is. And then someone said, this is a pot, removing his ignorance of pot. What has that knowledge got to do with what he repeated? The previous repetition was useless. His knowledge is not a result of his repetition of the word pot, whether the repetition was before or after knowing the pot. Now here, if I do not recognize that I am Ishvara by knowledge, how is repetition of Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, or some equivalent statement going to help? If I do not understand the meaning of the original statement the first time, how will I know the second or third or the nth time? If I know the first time, why should I have to hear it a second time? Once I know it. The repetition has no meaning at all. But here, Nana, how then do we understand this Brahmarakita Nyaya? Because there it is constant repetition and then it becomes, no?
No. The constant repetition is out of knowledge or ignorance. That is to be understood. Here, this is out of knowledge, recognizing. When you have recognized, that is knowledge in itself. There's no further repetition required. Brahmara was out of ignorance, was repeating. That worm was repeating whatever Brahmara is capable of. Bhaved Brahmara Kitavat. It is out of ignorance. It went on thinking about the Brahmara. Okay, that's a minor difference. You look at it that way clearly.
Okay.
Right.
When recognition is by knowledge alone, why do I require a nishta in the form of a repetition of the jnana vritti, aham brahmasmi? The particular vritti that removes the ignorance of my being Brahman is what is called a jnana vritti. By this vritti alone, one knows, abhijanati. This is true of any object I want to know. If I want to know a pot, the thought form because of which I recognize a pot, the ghata vritti, will give me the knowledge, not mere repetition. To say that knowledge requires repetition is a contradiction. Here, the confusion is about myself, Atma. The vritti, because of which the removal of the confusion takes place, is called jnana vritti. If at one given time there is a vritti in my mind that I am Brahman, that vritti should destroy the ignorance about Atma being Brahman. That is all that is required here. Atma is not seen as Brahman, and that confusion has to be resolved. The Atma, which is always self-evident, is mistaken as something else, and that mistake must be removed, for which I require a vritti called jnana vritti. But once it takes place, I should recognize Atma as Brahman. Therefore, what is the necessity for nishta in the form of repetition of the same vritti? When I look at a pair of glasses and I know that these are a pair of glasses, I don't need to repeatedly have the vritti, these are a pair of glasses. Once is enough. Jnana nishta is not repetition, but the ultimate certainty of knowledge. This argument is based on taking the meaning of the word nishta as repetition, abhyasa. It has this meaning, no doubt, but that is not the sense in which it is used here. Shankara responds to this by explaining the meaning of the word nishta. It can be understood in two ways. The practice of contemplation and manana on the meaning of the Shastra as revealed by the teacher is called Jnana Nishta or Jnana Yoga. Because the person has no commitment other than to gaining knowledge, his Nishta commitment is in Jnana. He has no Nishta in tapas or mantra or karma, but only in gaining knowledge Jnana. Here, some practice abhyasa is accepted. There is asakrit upadesha, repeated exposure to the teaching. Because it is a question of gaining increased clarity, which finally must end. That end, avasana, is also called nishta. Knowledge which has an ultimate certainty, paranishta, is knowledge that cannot be improved upon. Not only the process, but what is accomplished by that process is also called jnana nishta. Whatever takes place in the antakarana, the ultimate result of a process or whatever you do in order to know is jnana nishta. Suppose you are arriving at a piece of inferential knowledge which implies many steps, like the solution to a mathematical problem. There is a complex process of inquiry at the end of which is the result. Both the process and the result are called jnana nishta, the certainty of the knowledge and the process by which it is reached. But here, jnana nishta is used in the sense of the result, the end, avasana, of the process of knowing. In this context, the word nishta, when it is used in this sense, means immediate knowledge that Atma is Brahman. The certainty in that knowledge is the ultimate end of that jnana. He recognizes me by a knowledge which leaves nothing to be desired. And having recognized me, he gains me, mam abhijanati, in terms of identity with me. That is the meaning of this sentence. That is why the word tattvataha, meaning in reality, is used. Therefore, Krishna says, the one who knows me in reality enters into me, meaning he is no longer separate from me. From this, we understand that there is an order, krama. One recognizes the Lord as oneself because of this nishta in knowledge. Shankara adds that this nishta is knowledge which is coupled with the causes for its transpiring, the preparedness of the mind. In other words, obstruction-free knowledge. What are the possible obstructions? Lack of shama, dama, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhana, viveka, vairagya, mumukshutva, all the values and attitudes that we have seen obstructs the knowledge. If all or any of these are inadequate, the knowledge may arise. But
Hariyo. What it means is, this shama, dama, etc. obstruct the knowledge. It's not that. The lack of these obstructs the knowledge. That lack of, don't forget.
Yeah, lack of. Correct.
Yeah.
Lack of all of this, lack of all the shamadishat sampatti,
Correct.
and all the values and attitudes that we have seen obstructs the knowledge. They are the pratibandhakas, basically. If all or any of these are inadequate, the knowledge may arise, but it will be fraught with obstructions. How are you going to remove them? By what is called jnanabhyasa. If the knowledge itself is attended by doubts, you clear those doubts by manana. If contradictory opinions about yourself seem to have a hold over you, then you require whatever is necessary to correct those opinions, mainly contemplation, nididhyasana. This kind of knowledge ends where there is absolute certainty that Atma is Brahman. This immediate knowledge is what is meant by the word nishta. Jnana nishta is knowledge without any obstruction, knowledge with certainty. Even though the practice leading to this is also called jnana nishta, that is not the cause for knowing that Atma is Brahman. The practice only removes the obstruction. Pramana gives rise to the knowledge. The net result is knowledge that is free from obstructions. The direct and secondary causes for knowledge. This is the bhakti spoken of in this verse. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. The means of gaining this knowledge is shastra, handled by a teacher who knows the import of the words of the Shastra. Because of the teaching, knowledge is born, but for that knowledge to be fruitful, there are certain qualities and values to be cultivated by the student. The teacher employing the Shastra makes it very clear that you are Brahman. For this knowledge to take place, to be received properly, there are certain requirements in terms of the preparedness of the mind in which the knowledge is to arise. This preparedness is a secondary cause. It is pramana that produces knowledge. And if that pramana properly employed does not produce knowledge, it is evident that there is some obstruction. Anything that removes that obstruction is called a secondary cause. Sahakarika karana. Shankara reduces these secondary causes to two here. They are freedom from the hold of raga, dveshas, likes and dislikes, and the qualities beginning with amanitva, spoken of in the 13th chapter. Though there are many items in that list for a mumukshu, these things come naturally. Everybody has them in some degree. Otherwise, they would not get into this pursuit at all. The qualities are there in every seeker, but perhaps not adequately. Shankara explains the knowledge which is born as that of the oneness of the kshetrajna, the individual, with Paramatma, the Lord. All that is here is one complete Purnam Brahma. In this knowledge, there is non-duality, there is identity. Then he characterizes that knowledge further as a knowledge which implies a total renunciation of all activities. Activities imply certain necessary factors like an agent, karta, the object which is the recipient of the action, karma, the means of doing it, karana, the source from which it proceeds, apadana, and the location where the action takes place, adhikarana. All of them may not be there in a given action, but the agent and the object have got to be there. The differences among these must be appreciated in order to perform an action. For example, the knowledge that I am the doer, I am doing this for the purpose of achieving heaven, is necessary to perform the ritual for going to heaven. Here, however, the knowledge implies the renunciation of all activities which have their causes in knowledge of the duality, obtaining among the various factors necessary for performing action. This knowledge is in the form of certainty with reference to oneself, being non-separate from Ishvara, the Lord. That is the ultimate end of knowledge, jnana nishta. This jnana nishta is the real bhakti, the bhakti of the fourth type of devotee, the jnani. His devotion is the greatest because Lord Krishna says, the one who knows me is myself. That wise person is non-separate from the Lord. That final knowledge is called Jnana Nishta. Jnana Nishta is removal of the obstructions and enjoying Jnana Phala. If it is knowledge, why not just say Jnana? Why Jnana Nishta? The word Jnana is adequate, but we have to use these extra words like Jnana Nishta and Jnana Abhyasa because due to obstructions, knowledge does not necessarily take place by merely exposing oneself to the teaching. When the means of knowledge is there and the thing to be known is available, knowledge should transpire. Why does it not transpire? When I say you are Brahman, the one who is addressed should see it like daylight. But then one does not, or one sees and does not see. What does it mean? There is a problem which we cannot simply ignore. We have to recognize the problem and address it by examining our attitudes and values, by living a prayerful life, by gaining a mastery over the ways of thinking, and by spending time in contemplation. All these are necessary for gaining what is called Jnana Nishta. There seems to be a condition where Jnana is there, but at the same time, one is not completely free. After an adequate exposure to the teaching, You can never say, I don't know that I am Brahman, or I'm not sure if I'm Brahman. Yet you cannot say, I am Brahman. This is why we have the expressions like jnana, knowledge, and jnana nishtha, knowledge free from abstractions. This situation has been there for everyone. It is an age-old problem. That is why so much is said about prayer, values, attitudes, etc. Prayer and a prayerful attitude in all your activities are the most important factors. So Shankara mentions them here. Another one is sannyasa, also called jnana nishtha. Now the word indicating a lifestyle wherein the person does nothing else except pursue knowledge. So does this mean this jnana nishtha that in this last paragraph is also an attribute a karma yogi has?
Yes,
Correct?
yes. Look at
And
it this way. All of us who have been through in our lives, we have learned the hard way the initial steps of cycling, for instance. When you have first done some cycling for a distance, you have you have picked up the knowledge of cycling, but the cycling nishtha you have not got. Same thing with driving. That ABC is there, accelerator, brake, and that clutch and things like that. Your trainer has told you, and the first time you have done that, you are very happy. The moment you operate your feet appropriately, etc., and handle the steering wheel very nicely, you are able to go with the vehicle in proper direction. That is jnana for driving. But the jnana nishtha is not there. You could do that when the trainer was there, because the trainer has the countervailing influence of controlling the vehicle himself in case you fail. With that impression, you have been kind of okay. You have picked up that knowledge of driving, but you have not really picked up the driving nishtha will come when you fully understand what it is about, and your other obstructions, your habitual identifications with so many other things, those must be kept aside. Then only the driving nishtha will come. It's like that.
yeah,
It's like that for anything. Even see, when we were all infants, what is it we were looking for in the mother's lap? We were looking for our food. We were very, very hungry. We have spent a lot of difficult time in the womb and during the delivery time, which is painful to the mother. It is painful equally to the infant who is trying to come out, and that infant will feel hungry. And what does he do? He looks for food. And how does he get? The food is there. Okay. The pot of food is there for him, but he does not know how to suck. And that's a matter of he gets to know. He makes an initial step of sucking. He gets the sweet milk of the mother's breast. But then he must get used to that. This is the same that nishtha in every walk of life. What to speak of our knowledge of who indeed we are. Okay?
yeah,
So whatever learned, it has to be imbibed.
Yes. Very right, sir.
That is what is nishtha. Means we
Correct.
have to live.
Correct. It must become our second nature. Like we breathe. We don't make a decision to breathe and start breathing. We keep on breathing. That is our second nature. This jnana nishtha also should become like that.
Nana, Dr. Renu has a question. You can never say, I don't know I'm Brahman, or I'm not sure if I'm Brahman, yet you can't say I'm Brahman. Please explain. Swamiji had mentioned initially.
That is, you can't say, I'm not sure I am Brahman. Neither can you say, I am Brahman with certainty. Because you can't say I am Brahman with certainty because you have your own doubts. Because you identify yourself with your body, identify yourself with your notions, identify yourself with the various other things with which you are equated. You think you are those. And it is very difficult to get rid of those notions. And as long as those notions persist, you can't say, I am Brahman. But you are told, like Sumaji or somebody asked, I asked her, what do you think you are? She said, I am Atma. But I am Atma is not a statement born out of knowledge. It is a statement born out of hearsay. Hearsay of what the Shastra has said. Shastra has said that our effort is in the fulfillment of the Shastra Vakya. Till that fulfillment is there, Dr. Reno, this happens. Our effort is in respect of that fulfillment.
Thank you, Nana.
Thank you.
Things to pay attention to in order to gain Jnana Nishta. By the practice of contemplation, Nididhyasana, and developing dispassion, Vairagya, through inquiry, a cheerful disposition of the mind is slowly gained. Because of that, there is clarity of the knowledge, I am Brahman.
Hari Om.
This-
Just now, somebody put up a note. Can we say that note read? Can we say it starts with belief and then finally ends in knowledge? Can we say that is the Jnana Nishta? That belief, if you say, it's not a question of belief. I would say you can substitute Shraddha for belief. Sri Shraddha and belief, they're slightly different. Belief can be a blind belief, maybe based on tradition. It is what your ancestors have done and you keep on doing that without knowing the veracity of why you are doing what you are doing. That is belief, right? Like belief, the Pitrukarya that all of us do, that is a belief. We do not really know. We have been told that there is a Pitruloka and the departed souls will be there waiting for food. And once in a year, you give them food. That once in a year is adequate for them. And that at least you should not deny it to them. This is what the tradition, the Shastra, and the Smriti Granthas say. You believe that. And Shraddha is different. In the Vedanta Vakyas, you have got a kind of a firm belief. It's not a blind belief. Firm belief pending your own inquiry. That is Shraddha. Yes, with that kind of Shraddha, you can go forward, ending up in Jnana Nishtha. Yeah. Thank you.
Things to
Yeah.
by the
He is very clearly that, therefore he repeats this. Knowledge free from obstruction. So beautifully. That we are not understanding those obstructions. So the free from obstruction is Jnana Nishta. Means you are becoming that, not no obstructions at all.
Yeah, very right. All those obstructions are born in us. And all those obstructions have been kind of nurtured by us. We have to get rid of those, and that is the way of Jnana Nishtha.
things to pay attention to in order to gain Jnana Nishta. By the practice of contemplation, Nididhyasana, and developing dispassion, Vairagya, through inquiry, a cheerful disposition of the mind is slowly gained. Because of that, there is clarity of the knowledge, I am Brahman. In this, the notion of division between the individual and the Lord disappears. To appreciate this first, you have to understand that Ishvara is both the material and the efficient cause of the creation, and therefore the entire creation is Ishvara. Knowing that I am Ishvara, who is this entire world, means The entire world of name and form is non-separate from myself. And the Lord is non-separate from myself because the essential nature of the Jiva is consciousness, Chaitanya Atma, which is non-dual. That is the whole vision, the vision of the whole. The resolution of the difference between Ishvara and me amounts to my being everything. There is nothing that is separate from me. Finally, he has no more doubt. This is the bhakti that is talked about here, otherwise called Jnana Nishta, knowledge. The Shastra that enjoins a life of renunciation becomes meaningful only when this life of Jnana Nishta lifestyle leading to Jnana Nishta, knowledge without any obstructions, is the ultimate end. If that is understood, you can meaningfully give up all karma and pursue knowledge. Otherwise, you cannot give up karma, but you can give up karma phala, like heaven, etc., and pursue knowledge as a karma yogi. Either way, you can get moksha. To give up all karma, one must be free from the desire for security, artha, pleasure, kama, and a better lot later, dharma. That implies vairagya, and without it, though I may give up the pursuits, the desires will persist and will obstruct my pursuit. Desires are never successfully given up. One grows out of them through an inquiry, vichara, resulting in dispassion, vairagya. Every one of us has grown out of a few desires in our lives. To understand what real renunciation is, look at your attitude towards objects that you have grown out of, such as balloons. Even if you would like to have one, it is not a binding desire. If you get it, you will enjoy it. But if you do not get it, you are not going to become unhappy. Nor will you be upset if you get it and it bursts. With reference to balloons, we all have vairagya. We do not go after them, nor are we frightened of getting them. This is called sannyasa. But when you were a child, you did not have the same attitude. That means we grow up to become a sannyasi. If you can reduce everything to the status of balloons, you are the sannyasi that is talked about here. The attitude we have towards balloons, we can enjoy with reference to everything in this world. When one has grown out of all the three pursuits, dharma, artha, and kama, it is possible to live one day at a time. When you do not care for tomorrow, you are already a renunciate. For that, you have to be mature. Otherwise, you will feel miserable. To gain that maturity, that inner security, one has to live a life of karma yoga. Then life becomes meaningful. There is no other meaning for bhakti here. This can be the bhakti of a jnani, the fourth type of bhakti, or that of a jignasu, the third type. Because of this reason, Bhagavan says, he knows me, mam abhijanati. To gain moksha, the Shastra enjoins a life of sannyasa, which is a life of jnana nishta. This moksha is not a result of any action, karma phala. It is appreciating the pratyagatma as param brahma. When that recognition is free from any vagueness or doubt, that is what we call nishta. We are not trying to improve the status of pratyagatma. If it undergoes a change, there is something we can do. But if it does not, what are we going to do? Being not subject to any modification, improvement is not possible. But Brahman being what it is not necessary. Previously, I was Brahman. Now also I am Brahman. It does not and need not undergo any change to become something else. Moksha is nothing but knowing this. Then, why do we define the Purushartha as moksha and not knowledge? Nobody is interested in this kind of self-knowledge. One may be interested in knowledge of electronics because that is useful. But one will not be interested in self-knowledge unless he recognizes that all pain is centered only on the self. Since he is interested in getting rid of the sense of limitation centered on the self, the interest is only freedom from dukkha. The Purushartha is not jnana, but moksha. Even a scientist who is interested in knowledge for its own sake is not really interested in knowledge, but in the joy of discovery and the sense of satisfaction he derives from gaining a better understanding of the laws of the universe. Finally, his pursuit is centered on himself, on his own happiness. Freedom alone is the ultimate end of the jiva, not knowledge. But moksha is in the form of knowledge, and that is where conversion from a mumukshu to a jignasu takes place. A mumukshu can get carried away doing any number of things, from dieting to closing the eyes and looking for varieties of things. If by doing so, he thinks that he is going to get moksha, that is very unfortunate. Any of these things may be useful, but they are not going to solve the problem. Only knowledge is moksha because you are already liberated. It is for this knowledge that one takes to a life of sannyasa. Shankara contrasts this to a life meant for karma phala by saying that it is not possible for a person who wants to go to the Western Ocean and a person who wants to go to the Eastern Ocean to travel the same path. They are going in opposite directions. Karma is meant for one who is interested in small ends like heaven, etc. And therefore, his approach, his attitude, his whole commitment is different. The one who is interested in moksha, which is in the form of knowledge, is interested in jnana nishta. Shankara again defines jnana nishta as the commitment to the pursuit of knowledge leading to jnana nishta. Abiding knowledge without any obstruction. He uses the word abhinivesha, which means total commitment, like one who is possessed. Under the possession of anything, even anger or greed for power or money, a person finds in himself an extra power. Here, it is a complete commitment to the pursuit of knowledge with a passion. There is a consistent flow of contemplation upon Brahman as oneself. Using words like Shuddha, Nitya, Purna, Satya, Jnana, Ananta, which reveal the nature of Brahman, he continuously appreciates that Pratyagatma, the inner self, is identical with Brahman. That kind of commitment is just the opposite to the pursuit of karma, and therefore it cannot be accompanied by the pursuit of karma. One depends upon an agent and the other dismisses it. So there is no possibility of a synthesis of jnana nishta and karma nishta. They are as different from one another as a mountain and a mustard seed. How can they possibly be confused? A hill can be taken as a mountain, but you can never commit the mistake of taking the mustard seed for a mountain. Such is the difference between jnana nishta and the pursuit of karma. There is so much disparity that it is a contradiction. This is the conclusion of those who know the Shastra, Shankara adds. Jnana nishta, therefore, is to be accomplished by the renunciation of all karma, sarva karma sannyasa. It is important to note here that while karma is opposed to jnana, karma yoga is not opposed to jnana because it is meant for preparation of the mind, which is again meant for jnana. Therefore, he is now going to talk about karma yoga in the next shloka and a few others. Shankara's introduction to the next verse. In this chapter, the entire vision of the Gita Shastra is summed up, making it firm and clear. He has already dealt with sannyasa. Now he is going to talk about karma yoga, a life imbued with devotion to the Lord. We have seen that worshipping the Lord by doing one's own duty, a human being gains a certain accomplishment. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. By performing one's own duty in a given place and time, recognizing dharma to be Ishvara, from whom the world has come, and by whom it is pervaded, he gains success, siddhi. What is that siddhi? Shankara says, that is the eligibility to gain jnana nishta. Because of karma yoga, the antakarana is prepared, and thereby he gains jnana and then jnana nishta. That means that if repeated contemplation, etc., is a necessity, one cannot circumvent it. If the mind is prepared, jnana does not take any time, and that jnana has its culmination in liberation. The karma yoga that prepares the mind for this jnana is being praised now to make the vision clear and firm. So I skip 56, go to 57.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, Brahmara,
Yeah, we'll go to
56 does not seem to be very big.
Yeah, we'll do the
Maybe you do 56 and 57.
Okay.
It is already 8:30. You may require another 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarva karmanya sada kurvano madhyapashrayaha matprasadadavapnoti shashvatam padamavyayam. The one who is always doing all proper actions, whose basis for all actions and results is myself, gains the end, which is eternal and imperishable because of my grace. Karma yogi also gains jnana nishta. Here he shows that the karma yogi reaches the same end as the one who is committed purely to jnana and jnana nishta. This is because a life of jnana nishta, which entails renunciation of all other activities, will not be fruitful unless one has lived a life of prayer and prayerful activity. Krishna has said previously, but renunciation is difficult to accomplish, Arjuna, for the one who has not lived a life of karma yoga. Sannyasaha tu mahabaho dukkhamaptum ayogataha. Living a life of renunciation is easier said than done. One must have a contemplative mind, which is acquired only as one goes through one's life. The same thing is said here. Shankara says that the use of the word api also, along with the word sarva karmani, all actions, indicates not only the actions that are to be done, vihita karmas, but also those that are not to be done, pratisiddha karmas. Here it seems as though a karma yogi can do prohibited actions too. That is not the meaning of the statement of Shankara. It means two things here. Firstly, what is right and wrong is relative. What is wrong may be right when the circumstances change. Therefore, sometimes what is generally considered to be wrong may be unavoidable. In these situations, a karma yogi takes it as a part of Ishvara's order, and being committed to Ishvara does that action and does not incur papa. Secondly, sometimes an action like a small hurt to some beings, like stamping an act, etc., is done unknowingly. Even then, this karma yogi who does all actions being madhya pashraya, that is, being totally dedicated to Ishvara, does not incur papa. He gains that ultimate end due to the grace of Ishvara. Even a simple ethical person who has nothing to do with the Lord or religion does this. He lives a clean, legal, and ethical life, doing all that is to be done and not doing anything that is not to be done. I say both legal and ethical because even though you are clean legally, ethically you need not be. The legal code is such that you can interpret it to your own advantage, even when you have transgressed the moral law. Conversely, ethically you may be right, but not legally. This is a big problem in the United States, where it is so easy to file a malpractice suit against a doctor. If a doctor is passing the scene of an accident, he is ethically bound to stop and give medical. But if anything goes wrong, he can be sued. Certain actions which are ethical become illegal. But here is a person who is living both a legal and an ethical life. He is pragmatic, but he has nothing to do with religion or Ishvara. Such a person is not a karma yogi, and his lifestyle cannot be called karma yoga. It becomes karma yoga only when you recognize Ishvara as the one who gives the results of all actions, karma phaladata, and the one who is the very law of dharma. I am saying this because there is so much confusion about karma yoga. It has come to be known as skill in action. By that definition, even an expert pickpocket becomes a karma yogi. All over the world, this is a big misconception about karma yoga, which has no support from the Gita at all. He takes refuge in Ishvara. Nowhere in the Gita is there any mention of karma yoga without Ishvara. It is a life of prayer and prayerful attitude with reference to karma. This particular surrender is recognition of and conformity to Ishvara's dharma. That alone changes the person. Krishna makes it very clear here by saying, the one who has taken refuge in me, madhya pashrayaha. For a karma yogi, the Lord is not separate from dharma, and he does not lose sight of this because of his ragas and dveshas. While choosing his course of action, he is conscious of the Lord in the form of dharma, in the form of karmadhyaksha, and at the time of facing the results, he is aware of the Lord as the giver of the fruits of action, karma phaladata, and receives that result as prasada. At no time can he lose sight of Ishvara. This is a person for whom the basis of all actions and the source of the results of all actions is Ishvara. He is called Madhya Pashrayaha. Performing all actions, Sarva Karmani Kurvanaha, he never loses sight of Ishvara. By Ishvara Prasada, he gains Shashvatam Padam. Because of Ishvara's grace, Mat Prasadat, as Krishna says, he gains an end which does not come to an end. Shashvatam Avyayam Padam Avapnoti. This is moksha. How does he get Ishvara's grace? Because he has taken refuge in Ishvara, he gains Antakarana Shuddhi, whereby there is cheerfulness, clarity, and tranquility. That is prasada. Then there is exposure to proper teaching, upadesha, that is necessary for clear knowledge. Without the grace of Ishvara, he will not find a proper guru and have access to the Shastra. The body and mind must also be conducive for his pursuit as well as the surrounding condition. All these are due to the grace of the Lord, Ishvara Prasada. If you really look into it, you will find the whole pursuit is nothing but Ishvara Prasada. In time, the Karma Yogi gains the same Jnana Nishta. A Karma Yogi is also a Mumukshu. He is not doing karma for the sake of heaven or anything, like a Karmatha, but he does karma for the sake of Antakarana Shuddhi and continues to pursue the study of the Shastra. Therefore, surely he will gain moksha. This being so, Krishna asks Arjuna to do his duty with the attitude of karma yoga. Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparaha buddhi yoga mupashritya machitta satatam bhava. Being one whose only end is myself, mentally renouncing all actions unto me, resorting to a life of karma yoga, may you become one whose mind is always in me. Therefore, Arjuna, take to karma yoga. Always have your mind in me. Arjuna is advised, may you become one whose mind is always with me. Machitta satatam bhava. Certain minds are not in Parameshwara at all. For others, the mind is in Parameshwara occasionally, on certain days, like Friday or Sunday, and at certain times, like morning and evening. In those moments of prayer, the mind is committed to Ishvara, but not otherwise. Here, Krishna is asking Arjuna to be one whose mind is always with me. What does this mean? Should he never have any other thought other than that of Parameshwara? How can he always think of Ishvara and go about doing his work? It is possible only when he appreciates that everything, the whole Jagat, is Ishvara. Then, doing anything or not doing anything, he never misses Ishvara. This is why now I get to understand why for Karma Yoga, the concept of Ishvara is so important.
It's very, very important. Without Ishvara, there is no Karma Yoga.
I was wondering, why does he keep saying Ishvara? There was still that shade of doubt there. Living a life ethically, and he's doing everything, offering everything. But this is the reason. Machitta satatam bhava.
The 65th verse indeed talks of Karma Yoga only. The 65th verse, that is the penultimate sloka of the Gita.
Sarva dharman parityaja, is that the one?
That is the last one. Manmana bhava madbhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasatyante pratijane priyosime. We'll see that tomorrow or day after. Yeah.
Mentally renounce all your actions unto me. Krishna says, Chetasa, by the mind, one should renounce all actions. I will just read this one statement again, Nana. How can he always think of Ishvara and go about doing his work? It is possible only when he appreciates that everything, the whole Jagat, is Ishvara. Then, doing anything or not doing anything, he never misses Ishvara. Mentally renounce all your actions unto me. Krishna says, Chetasa, by the mind, one should renounce all actions. What kind of mind does he talk about? Shankara says, it is a mind that has discrimination, viveka. Activities have two different types of results, seen, drishta, as well as unseen, adrishta. When you do charity, for instance, there is a visible result in the form of the satisfaction you get, and an unseen result called punya, which will manifest as something desirable later. Similarly, when you perform a ritual or offer daily prayers, there is the immediate result of antakarana shuddhi, your composure and acceptance of whatever has happened, giving a degree of freedom from raga dveshas. Then, whether you want it or not, there is punya accrued as a result of those actions. Some karmas are done for the purpose of an immediate result, like antakarana shuddhi, and some are done for a result that is to be realized later, like heaven. All these actions, sarva karmani, are to be offered to Ishvara with a proper attitude. Lord Krishna says, mentally renouncing all actions unto me, chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya. That is the proper attitude. Previously, he had said, whatever you do it as an offering to me. Yat karoshi tat kurushva madarpanam. Because something presents itself to be done by you, therefore you do it. This is Ishvara's order. The very fact that you are placed in a given situation, which calls for an action on your part, means that you are caught in this fabric of Ishvara. To appreciate this fact that the action which you've got to do is enjoined by Ishvara is not an ordinary thing. If you analyze it, you will find that any inevitability is nothing but Ishvara. In common parlance, there is an expression, man proposes, God disposes, or whatever happens is said to be Ishvara's will, Ishvarecha. This has to be understood properly. It is not that God goes about desiring something to happen to you. He is not going to decide about the headache you might get tomorrow. It is the law that is Ishvara. Ishvarecha implies your own past karma. And that law of karma, law of dharma that brings about a given result is not merely mechanical. It is a manifestation of Ishvara, the conscious being. Any inevitable situation is Ishvarecha, And once you understand that, you do whatever the situation calls for. It is a part of the whole colossal yajna of the cosmos in which there is a constant flux of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. The creation is something like a boiling pot of water. You find an arrangement of bubbles that keeps on changing, but it is all very logical. One bubble is big, another is small. One has burst already, and another is just breaking up. There is logic that determines why a bubble is here now, why one is big or small, etc. They all follow some laws, which perhaps we have not yet decoded. We are like bubbles. Each one has to do certain things at a certain time, and this is Ishvarecha. When the call for actions are done with a mind that has this appreciation, it is an offering to Ishvara. This is so beautiful. Have me as your only end. This person, Krishna says, is Matparaha, the one for whom Ishvara is paramount. Ishvara is the only end for him, nothing else. He does not use Ishvara as an accomplice for gaining smaller ends. Not that there is anything wrong with making use of Ishvara's grace for the purpose of getting some small result. A person who does so is also a devotee, an artharthi. But here we are talking about a jignasu, one who wants Ishvara's grace not to gain some small end, but to gain Ishvara. Being one for whom Ishvara is the end, he has no other refuge but Ishvara. Krishna says, taking refuge, upashritya, in a life of karma yoga, here called buddhi. May you become one whose mind is always resolved in me. Machitta satatam bhava. Not in the morning or in the evening, but always surrendered at the feet of Bhagavan. Karma yoga is a life of surrender, a religious life. Ishvara has to be accepted, and therefore there is no secular karma yoga. When you want to accomplish things without Ishvara, you create a lot of unnecessary pressure because you're taking charge of things that you are not capable of controlling. When you make your
voice is breaking, Brahma.
Is my voice breaking?
No, it is not. It is very clear.
Maybe it's your net,
It
Malti
is
ji.
breaking.
Can you just log out and log in? Maybe your internet is an issue. So when you want to accomplish things without Ishvara, you create a lot of unnecessary pressure because you are taking charge of things that you are not capable of controlling. When you make yourself responsible for things for which you are not responsible at all, you build up pressure and invite problems. In the beginning, you may enjoy some success, but later you will suffer a breakdown. In Karma Yoga, efficiency is natural because you are free from anxiety. When there is no pressure, all your faculties are available to you because you do not spend your time worrying about what will happen. You just do what you can do. Real efficiency is not perfection. It is the availability of the total person. All your faculties, your emotion, your mind, senses, and skills are available for the task at hand. And the fact that what is available is limited is not a problem. Everybody has limited powers, but the limited powers you have are at your disposal because you're using them for making an offering to Ishvara. There is no question of your not being efficient, but it is not right to define Karma Yoga as efficiency in work. Karma Yoga is purely a religious life, so there is no Karma Yoga without devotion. Shankara says, Buddhi Yoga is a firm resolve of the mind. As we saw in the second chapter, the one who has discovered that moksha is the only purushartha has a mind that is resolute, while the one who has not properly ascertained this end has a mind that is fragmented. If the end is not clear, the ends are endless. And if the end is very clear, The only project I have is fixing up myself so that I can understand my identity with Ishvara. Everything is for that purpose, and therefore everything has a purpose. No matter what it takes, no matter how many years it takes, it does not matter. The resolution, the commitment is to moksha as the end, and therefore karma becomes yoga. If one's mind is always resolved in Ishvara, then what happens?
Yeah, call it a day. Thank you. Very nicely read. Thank you. Thanks, all of you. My apologies once again. We have taken almost an hour today also. Yeah. Tomorrow onwards, we'll go on to the 61st verse onwards. Okay? Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Nidamayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschet Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om, everybody.
Hari Om Nana.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hari Om Nanaji.